I have a word for all of this that covers it everything.
Mm-hmm.
McClunky.
McClunky.
This is
Certainly.
Very, but Skype is McClunky.
The most versatile word since the F word. Everybody else have Baby Yoda?
Okay, are we ready?
Baby Yoda. Yeah, we're ready.
Don't be different, Baby Yoda.
Oh, Baby Yoda.
Yeah, we can't do that.
No.
All right, are we ready to start this thing? This monstrosity?
That's Yoda in maggot form, I want you to know. That's the
You
grub.
actually
That's the grub
Look
larval
at it,
form. That's the larval
I've seen
form
the
of
whole
Yoda.
time, so go for it. Go for it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cantina Club. We're having all kinds of fun here today already. We've already been trying to connect the internet for an hour, but we're here now, so we're going to jump into this. Today's topic is finally, at last, our Rise of Skywalker wrap-up show, even though it's been out 2 months now. But
It's
we
1
finally
month.
got around to it because life won't let us do anything else. All right, we'll be right back after this, and we're going to jump right into things. Don't go away. Oh, help us, help, Lord.
Lord Vader.
Lord Vader.
Good.
All right, so we are now back, and we're going to jump into our discussion, our wrap-up of the end of the Skywalker saga with the Rise of Skywalker Episode 9. First, we're going to kind of go around the horn here between myself, Greedo, and Gundark in no particular order, and just give our sort of quick synopsis of what we thought of the movie overall. Who would like to go first?
I'll be first.
Okay, Gundark, take it away.
I've only had a chance to see it twice, and that's not by choice, seeing it so few times. I just haven't had a chance to go back to the movie theater. I really wanted to. But I still have very mixed feelings about it. There were things that I loved about it. There were things that I really didn't like. There's still stuff I'm trying to process about it. It's part of why I want to go back again. It seemed to go so fast for me. There are things I feel like I missed that are really important. But I have mixed feelings about it overall as an end to the Skywalker saga as well. There were elements that I thought were just wonderful, sort of concluding the Skywalker story, and there were others that I just am uncertain about. So get into specifics later. I'm kind of on the fence, I guess.
Okay. Greedo.
You're on the fence?
Yeah.
Does the fence
Don't
have those?
topple me off.
Does the fence have those decorative spikes along it that could be quite painful?
Maybe so.
Okay, because that's kind of where I'm at. My overall thoughts was I was thinking about when we did our little podcast predicting things about this movie and how kind of uninterested we all were. And I said it just looks like a mess from when we watched the trailer. And that I think came true. It is a mess, but thinking back to how uninterested I was in everything, I have to say I enjoyed it much more than I ever would have thought I was going to enjoy it. I thought it was going to be epically horrible, and some people may feel that way, but I don't think so. I think they I won't say they did the best they could. I think that's kind of a cop-out, but I did enjoy it. I've seen it 4 times, and the 4th time was incredibly boring to me. So I was all the way through it, I was kind of like, why did I think it was a good idea to see this again? But anyway, I won't go much further than that for now, but to say I feel about it kind of the way I do about the whole sequel trilogy, is that it's just not my thing, really. It's nice to have Star Wars going and on the screen and stuff, but as the harder they tried to make it feel like Star Wars, it just didn't to me because the foundation and the middle and the end was just too far astray from, um, so it was okay, but I have big issues with it, and I didn't really fully connect with it. So, but better than I thought it'd be.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's easy for us to say it was better than we thought it was going to be because I literally went into this with zero, like you said, expectations.
Right.
Lowest amount of anticipation I've ever had for a Star Wars film ever. But overall, honestly, I would kind of have to echo, I think, mostly what Gundark said, in that I'm on the fence about a few things. There's some things I really liked, some things I didn't like, but I think I'm leaning towards I liked it, more than I disliked it. If that makes any sense. As again, kind of like you guys, I'm still processing, trying to put some of the things together. I've seen it 3 times now, and I probably will see it at least once more before it goes off out of the theaters. But I don't know. Again, maybe it's because of the fact that I went to this with such low expectations that I ended up enjoying it. Opposite of, say, Last Jedi, which I went into it actually having high expectations and walked out feeling like I got punched in the gut.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how much of a role that really played into it, but at the end of the day, I would say I do like it. I like more about it than I dislike, but it's by no means, a perfect film. And, to echo Greedo, I do like the fact, again, that we still have Star Wars in 2020. There's still Star Wars on the big screen, and it's still popular enough to where we now have shows on the streaming service and things like that. So, I'm not going to sit here and complain about Star Wars much. But, the movie could have been better, but it could have been worse. So I'll just put it that way.
And I want to point out the McClunkiness and irony of the fact that entire statement you just made. Your video was perfect and flawless. It looked like your stream is completely resolved now that we have jumped through flaming hoops to fix it, or to go around it. It just decides to fix itself. I mean, it's perfect now. I don't understand. Whatever, McClunky. That's all you can say.
It's all McClunky.
So let's try to get some excitement going again here, because we're all just kind of So what should we talk about first, Gundark?
Do we want to talk about things we didn't like about first, and so we can end on the things that we liked?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'll start by what really put me off and what is making it hard for me to process the film now, having only seen it twice, was the pacing, especially of the first half, was just so rapid fire, frenetic, frantic, it seems to me.
Mm-hmm.
I described the best analogy I could give to friends afterwards, after seeing it, who have not yet seen it, is it was like dropping acid and turning on Return of the Jedi. Not that I drop acid, but it's what I would imagine it would be like if you took some LSD and then you popped in Return of the Jedi. It was just freakishly fast. And the opening, the whole first half, I did not like the long treasure hunt MacGuffin thing. It just hopped from one aspect of it, one item to find in one aspect of the treasure hunt to another so rapidly that I can hardly even remember what was the point of that treasure hunt except to try to find a way to the Emperor. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
They kept going from spot to spot. I'm still having trouble processing that. It felt more like, maybe it was like LSD in an Indiana Jones movie more, that first half of the film.
Right.
It was like going through an Indiana Jones movie. So I did not like the rush pacing and the treasure hunt MacGuffin. I thought all of that could have been done away with and have just one little part of the story arc to find the Emperor, to allow a little bit more time for character development. And maybe I'll talk about characters more in a minute. But pacing, especially the first half of the film, was a problem for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Honestly, the opening sort of almost montage of scenes didn't bother me as much in subsequent viewings, I noticed. The first time I saw it, it really kind of maybe, what is happening right now? Am I watching is this actually a film?
Am I on Star Tours version 3.0?
On subsequent viewings, it didn't seem to bother me as much. Maybe because I knew it was coming. I don't know, but But no, my solution to that, instead of like what you were saying, Gundark, to eliminate it entirely and spend more time on character development. To me, I would, and I think I said this on the last episode when just Greedo and I were on. I would remove Last Jedi from the picture entirely. Take this story and expand it into 2 films.
Sure.
And have it be the final films of the saga. And that way you wouldn't have to rush through the montage and stuff like that. You could actually flesh that part out, and that could be basically the way the second film starts of the trilogy. And it's Kylo Ren searching through the galaxy. We can actually hear this. The dead speak, as it says at the beginning of the crawl. We can actually hear that as opposed to just being told about it, and that could set things in motion for the final 2 films. That would be my solution to that. But obviously, you can't go back in time and redo that. But that's
I would agree. It's like so packed. It felt like multiple movies in one, like 2, and that made it feel too rushed and didn't allow enough time for development of certain parts that I wanted to see more of. Right.
Agreed. As far as other things I didn't like, I wasn't crazy about, I don't know the name of the planet. It's what I called the Burning Man planet.
Right. Star Wars Burning Man.
I wasn't crazy about that. That sequence, there were parts, again, that I liked about it, but parts that I thought were just like, why? I don't know. I mean, again, not to say it was, another Canto Bite or anything. Nothing was that bad. But it's almost like an excuse to, hey, we have new weird looking aliens. Let's just have a 5-minute conversation with one of them to show you what our creature department can do. It's like, okay, I don't know. That took me out of the story a little bit. The whole chase scene I thought was a little too much. And another thing, even though, okay, let me preface this by saying, the humor in this film, I thought, was more true to Star Wars style humor than Last Jedi, but it still fell flat in a lot of spots. There were still some funny moments, but I think they tried a little too hard with 3PO, for one thing. Some of those jokes just fell completely flat. The one I did like, I'll give props, even though I know we're talking about dislikes right now, but since I'm bashing the humor, I will give props to, I thought the funniest one was when they did get to the Burning Man planet and he's giving like the whole spiel about the flowers and the stuff that happened. And they all just kind of looked at him and he just turns and looks at him.
That was a great moment. That was a great 3PO moment.
Yeah, that was a really good 3PO moment. But yeah, I mean, but for the most part, I think a lot of the humor did fall flat in this film, unfortunately, because, I like humor in Star Wars. We can't have Star Wars without a little bit of humor. But, anyway, I think it was just another case of trying too hard. So.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep quiet since my audio was louder than you guys. I didn't want to override you or anything. But you're both correct, of course. The pacing. I will say the MacGuffin hunt, the first time I saw the movie and maybe the second time, I enjoyed that part of it because I had read the reviews, the non-spoiler reviews, saying the first hour is a total mess. And then it gets good in the second. So I was watching it going, it is a mess, but it's an enjoyable mess. I'm having fun seeing the gang together, even if it isn't, the whole gang I want to see.
I
was
agree.
seeing, I like these characters. I don't have anything against them. So I'm giving them a chance to go on one adventure finally together and see what happens. And the moment where they're all laying there on the gobbledy sand or whatever it is, and they're shooting at the They Fly Now guy, I was at least they're all together bantering. To me, I was like, this isn't bad. I as crazy and obviously rushed and poorly planned as it is, it's a good watch. I mean, I was just feeling good watching it. So, so that being said, yeah, the pacing was bad. The Burning Man planet was bad, but it was okay to watch. It was enjoyable to watch. It didn't hurt the characters, I don't think, or anything in particular, except for the colossally awful They Fly Now line, which, I mean, how hard would that have been just for someone to sneak in and destroy all copies of that so that it could not be, put back in the film unless they spend another $1 million reshooting it. But anyway, and I thought 3PO was fine. I thought they wrote him a little hard for the humor. Like they gave almost every funny line to him in a row all of a sudden. Like this kind of all this, it's like, oh yeah, 3PO is part of this group. And oh yeah, 3PO, has the one-liners and stuff. It was sort of a little jarring because it isn't consistent with the rest of the other two movies, but I liked it better than the other two movies. Frankly, 3PO being involved, I wish he'd been involved the whole time. Um, and so yeah, and that brings us up to that point, I guess, in the movie. But I liked the beginning with Kylo Ren going on his little side quest. Frankly, that should have been it for the quests. They should have extended that to where they are specifically both sides reaching for the same exact thing at the same time. You don't have people all on one side of the galaxy trying to make obtain something, and a guy on the other side gets it right in the first 5 minutes, and then you go, well, we're going to explain it by saying there's two. It just doesn't.
Yeah, that's goofy.
I understand the metaphor of two and duality. It's been through Star Wars, but this has nothing to do with it. It doesn't work. And I think the quest should have been more about, if you're going to have the Emperor come back, which is a whole other discussion, but if the Emperor is your main guy, or whoever is saying, hey, come find me if you can. Good. This is my plan. Well, why not have a test of your character out there? That's a little more Indiana Jones's, like Last Crusade, but why not have someone have to prove they're worthy to find the Emperor, right? I understand grabbing a wayfinder, you have to mow through some minions, or you have to just randomly find it wherever it was. But why not have it be the Emperor planned it? Only the chosen are going to get through to see him, which is what we ended up with. We ended up with the two chosen getting through to see him, but it didn't seem like any sort of plan. It just seemed like garbage from a previous age. A guy dropped dead and he left a wayfinder. These Vader cultists just had one sitting inside an altar. It didn't explain anything. I would have much rather see that way. You could have had Rey, if you wanted to flirt with this whole thing of Rey's dark nature, it could have been testing her nature as she's getting closer to the Emperor, and we would have learned more about her and her companions. They could have had moral conundrums saying, how do we solve this? And Poe could be on one side and Finn could be on the other. And if you're going, just don't make it a MacGuffin. Write your plot around it and show us something about the characters with it and make it compelling. And then you could have raised the stakes. Like, just to get to the Emperor, they could have sacrificed characters and stuff. Like when Poe got shot on the Star Destroyer, I like Poe and everything, but it would have been better if somebody had died there to get them out of that situation, or someone had faced some real consequences, really dire. Also, if this whole thing is about finding the Emperor and the Wayfinder and all that information came out by the middle of the last part of the movie. Everyone knew how to get to the Emperor all of a sudden. Like, there were maps everywhere. He just said, come to me on Exegol to Pride or whatever. So, okay, the whole fleet freaking knows now how to get. So why not have your traitor, if the traitor's going to be another major storyline, why not have your traitor give you the way to the Emperor? And then the traitor actually does something useful. All the traitor did was tell them what was basically in a message that the whole galaxy got. And he just said, yeah, I can confirm it. It's true. I give you the name of the planet, Exegol. That's all he did. He didn't do, and he saved them later, I guess, but it was almost like so convenient, so silly. Anyway, so I'm getting way off topic into my own fan fiction, but I think this, we're talking about dislikes. This movie proves to me, and Carillion covered it in our last likes and dislikes, the sequel trilogy. There was no plan, one, and two, I forget what I was going to say next. So somebody talk, but there was no plan, and in this film, it's like I don't know. I forget what I was going to say, but honestly, it just went right out of my head. So somebody else can take over. But the whole thing of not having a plan is just, it really came to fruition here. And what I was going to say is, these movies were rushed. They were blatantly rushed. Even someone as stupid as I, and who doesn't really pay attention to all the news coming out, can see we should have noticed when Abrams requested another half a year of The Force Awakens and couldn't meet the deadline. And then they've put these out in 2 years. And it's just it didn't work. It just didn't work. It was way too little time to, if you have an inferior script, go back to the drawing board. Don't just randomly shoot a bunch of stuff and then make it conform to a story, which is, I feel like, what they kind of did. They were shooting off the seat of their pants, hoping they came up with something. It didn't work in Magical Mystery Tour, and it didn't work in this movie.
It seems to come out in the pacing of this movie overall. You mentioned about you wanted the MacGuffin storyline to not be MacGuffin, to have a quest that developed characters more. I want to talk next about problems I had about character development. I really like the two new female characters, the Zori Bliss, love interest of Poe, and the new female stormtrooper that Finn met. And I was so disappointed that they weren't better developed. And again, I felt like if they had more time, like
that's why we needed the middle movie back. Yeah.
Yeah, if they divided this into two films, we could have had a whole story arc with the stormtroopers who had been kidnapped, trying to develop a rebellion against the First Order, trying to find their families. That would have developed Finn much more. We weren't allowed to get his whole story arc in this film because all of that was so rushed. And I thought when he finally sat down and met that woman and she said, I was from the First Order Stormtroopers, and he sat down like, oh, speak to me. I'm like, oh, finally we're going to get Finn's Stormtrooper storyline developed. And they have only a minute to talk about it, and then it's gone, you know? So both that character and the Finn character suffered from that because they rushed through and they didn't take time to bring his story arc full circle. And then the Zoe Bliss character, I felt like if we could have had a little more time with her and Poe, their chemistry was great. And she was behind a mask the whole time. You know, we only saw her eyes.
Oh, we never even got to see her.
Yeah, their chemistry was awesome. So I would love to have a little bit more time with her. And again, that's the thing where I think that if it had all been planned out better from the beginning, and we had a good, solid second film that worked on basis of things that were set up in the first film, that we could have had those things fleshed out. So the minor characters were striking to me, but they weren't well enough developed. And then the major characters, Greedo said he really liked seeing them together again. I loved that because I had wanted that in The Last Jedi, and it was so disappointing to me that they were all separated and going their own way. And to see the three main characters that had such chemistry between them in The Force Awakens get back together was cool. But again, they could have been better developed. And I like Greedo's suggestion about using a different kind of quest to bring out elements of their characters. So overall, I'll hold off on the Emperor element until later. But the main heroes and the new characters that were introduced didn't have enough development for me.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I echo pretty much everything you said. Especially as far as the new characters are concerned, they just, I mean, it's not that I had a problem with them. It's like you said, they just didn't have time to tell us what we needed to know about them to really embrace them.
They were all on the same level as Babu Frick. They were they were either cute or funny or one note. They did, Babu Frick was the most popular new character, I think, because it's simple. And you can just throw in a funny guy who has a function in one scene, and it's memorable. He stole the scenes, but you can't do that with every side character. It just doesn't.
But yeah, I mean, they did come up fairly one-dimensional too. Again, because they didn't have time to flesh them out. Like with I don't know the name, the character, Poe's love interest. I just thought it was weird also that they literally, the only time you even see this character is in full mask, except for one scene when she has the visor up and you see her eyes. And that's it. Yeah. Not once did they ever even take the helmet. In that very last scene, like when everybody's celebrating, you can't have her without the helmet. That just seemed.
Yeah, she's still trying to be a badass or something.
Full, mighty Morphin Ranger, mode at that point.
They should have had her take off the mask, and she just has an upper part of a face, and the whole lower is like teeth and gristle and burnt stuff, like a Crypt Keeper. And Poe's like, no. She's like, yeah, okay. She's agreeing and then she takes the mask off and goes, oh, I got stuff to do.
Exactly.
No, I also thought it was an odd choice to put her on a planet that looks like Siberia, and she's wearing a skin-tight suit.
Right.
She's the only one without a coat. Even Rey was wearing a coat. Everybody was wearing a coat. 3PO was wearing a coat, I think, just to cover him up, just so people couldn't see who it was. But she's running around in latex or whatever with.
Yeah.
And metal's got to be freezing cold on your body.
Female superhero costume design.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the kind of nitpicking I do. Sorry, folks. Everyone hates me for it. It's just
know.
it's in my nature.
Yeah. I think there was promise there, is what I'm getting at.
There was. But we're on dislikes, so I ain't letting nothing through.
I mean, there's promise here. The potential, they just didn't have enough to flesh it out. So
yeah.
I would love to have gotten to know more about the female stormtrooper character, see a little bit more of her story and how she got to where she was, other than just literally like the 30-second blurb that just the exposition that explains it all. So. Yeah, I would have liked a little bit more on that, but unfortunately that's the problem when you go into a trilogy without a plan.
Right. By the way, there's these characters that were supposed to be developed in the second movie that no one knew about. I wanted to say that this is one of my major disappointments of the sequel trilogy is Finn, and not John Boyega's fault in any way, shape, or form, in any way that it would be Kelly Marie Tran's fault that I don't like Rose Tico's character. It's not the actors. So everybody just get that out of your mouths if you're going to say it. I don't hate any of the actors. I don't have anything personal against anyone. I loved Finn in The Force Awakens. They did bypass a few opportunities there to develop him more, like when he decided to run and stuff. There were some things they could have done there, I think, to be more effective instead of him just continuing to fall back on being kind of the comedic relief. But I was thinking that would change. I thought this tone would get darker in The Last Jedi and that would change. But he went nowhere in The Last Jedi. He had some of the most character-defining moments in that movie, and they meant nothing. Defeating his rival and the person who oppressed him in the form of Phasma. Nobody remembers that. That came across completely flat. And then when he was going to sacrifice himself at the end, it was resolved, but in a way that left no one feeling satisfied at all. And really not letting us understand his character development. So he went from a guy who ran for the most of two movies and was looking out for himself because he felt the war was unwinnable, to suddenly just being on fire. And we really didn't get any kind of convincing. The middle part of The Last Jedi, The Last Jedi was spent teaching him about the evils of people with money, not about the First Order. So I don't know where he turned the corner. But anyway, my whole thing was I always wanted to see. This guy is a hero. Finn is a hero to the galaxy. He's someone who was brainwashed, who was told to kill and said no. That's a very compelling story. And he also puts a soul and a face and humanity behind the troops that are faceless and, daunting, intimidating images of evil and fascism and enforcement, and obey or else. He didn't obey, and he survived to tell others. Well, never once does he really tell anyone. They show Rose, reacting as if he's a hero, but she's more about what he did at Starkiller Base, which is fine. But instead, we get in this third movie, his story kind of given to the new character, and they whiff on the moment where he says, "What happened?" And she says, "It was just a feeling. Well, I can't explain it." And she doesn't say, "We all heard about you. We were talking about you for months." No matter what our commanders told us, we know Starkiller Base was destroyed. We know you walked away from that. No matter what our commanders told us, we know you escaped from Crate, and you went aboard a Star Destroyer. They could have done a couple of lines to show the impact that Finn had as a true hero and that her development. They could develop both the characters that way. Instead, they made it about the storyline of him being force sensitive, which was no time to develop. There's no time to pay that off. He never got to really use the Force except to feel a few things. It was incidental. So you could have done both if you wanted to make him Force sensitive, but no one really cared. Does anyone care that he was Force sensitive at this point? Since he never got to use it or anything?
I wanted him to be the catalyst for rebellion among
I would have been totally happy. It's more like we're going to see it in a sequel. It's never going to happen. So why not fulfill his story that we actually saw, and then, So that was my major disappointment, is that, again, 90% of his dialogue is shouting names, and he's just the puppy dog character, unfortunately. and they introduced this stupid ground assault, which I still don't understand why you can't hit a tower with a spaceship. Why you have to put space horses on the ship. And while we're talking about things that we dislike, why didn't General Pride just turn the ship over with all the space horses on it? They were in an atmosphere. They weren't in space. I mean, how freaking dumb was he? I didn't hate him. I just thought they were a horrible image. It was Flash Gordon, which I understand that's part of the influence. They didn't. At least they didn't look stupid. They didn't fart. You know, I was afraid they were gonna fart on BB-8 or something, or R2. But yeah, my major dislike, which since I've been talking, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Besides all the missed opportunities, which I still think this whole trilogy to me is going to go down as a huge missed opportunity. My major dislike overall is just how I can't watch the film without all these plot holes just bothering me. Maybe it's my OCD, which I don't really have, but maybe it's just my over analytical mind. But I'm sorry, I just don't want to see movies about stupid people. I'm stupid. I don't want to see my life story. You know, I want to see people who are smarter than me doing things. Not everybody. I mean, if everybody's going to be Pippin, you know, from the Lord of the Rings, I don't want to see the Fellowship of Pippin. You know, he's a side character, and he's one character. He's allowed to be stupid because there's smart people to hold him up, and occasionally he has the heart to come through with something. But not everyone can be brain damaged, you know. And both sides, the good guys and the bad guys, I don't even care who wins because they're both dumb. And that's my major gripe is that a lot of these plot holes make no sense because nobody would act that way, not even in the Star Wars galaxy. Nobody would do the things they do. And the whole plot contrivance, none of it in this whole movie makes any sense to me. And it's full of new twists of the rules. And I'm not a big rule stickler. If it works for me emotionally. If it works emotionally, I'll forgive it. But this stuff is just very questionable. Every decision they made it didn't pay off enough. And even when it paid off for 2 seconds, and they're pushing you on they're pushing your next button,
right,
trying to pay off the next thing. You can't even feel anything for a second, you know. So there's no way to just in one movie build up 100 different emotional points and deliver them all home when they don't even make sense. Like you can't even justify why the characters are doing what they're doing. Palpatine is completely inexplicable in this movie. Does anyone know why he did a single thing he did? It just must be dementia, right? I mean, he just must have all his space Alzheimer's.
Why don't we go in that direction next then? And this has been a big controversy about the film, is bringing Palpatine back. Okay, first of all, do you think that could have worked? Would you think that they would originally have gone in that direction, or would you prefer them to have accomplished the end of the saga in a different way other than resurrecting them?
Yes, no, and yes.
Okay, what would you rather have?
Yes, it could have worked. No, whatever your middle question was, no, it wasn't what was supposed to happen, and it didn't really totally work. And what would I rather have? I would have rather, if Snoke was the first villain that they invented and everything, Snoke should have been the big bad villain. And let Palpatine rest in pieces. We had a significant 6 movies, significant 4 movies about Palpatine. The 2 of them were insignificant, in my opinion, but 4 of them were certainly significant and were compelling, and we're done. And yes, we're in space wizards and force magic, but it has to be consistent and not just push you to the point where you're rolling your eyes. And if you're going to bring Palpatine back, isn't the first question how? Doesn't that have to be the first thing you answer? Have they answered it to this day? No.
And I wondered, it would have seemed natural to me, with all the emphasis on cloning in the Star Wars mythology, that he would have used cloning techniques in some way, or that I don't know. It wasn't explained, and I'm on the fence about him coming back, because part of me thinks that it might have been cool to end it that way if the sequel trilogy had introduced him earlier. If they hadn't had Snoke, like you say,
that's back to Carillion's point. There's no plan.
Yeah, if they didn't have Snoke as a big baddie in the first film, he needed to continue on to give consistency to the sequel trilogy. And one of the big disappointments about Snoke for me, the first time we saw him, we're looking at that hologram of him, and he's got that big scar on his head that looks like it's either a lightsaber dual scar or a Force lightning scar, and you're thinking this guy has got major history with the Force, and I want to know about that history. And all we get in this film is we see a vat full of Snokes. Right. You know, got the scar. Like, what was Palpatine Did he make
that mark is where they pull them off the vine.
Yeah, created him with a scar.
Just
Yeah.
so that he could make people think that this guy had a
No, that's where they pull them off the vine. When they grow all the Snokes on a vine, and they're all attached to the vine by their forehead. And when you pull them off, it creates a dimple.
Yes, and I know that the film was trying to retcon the Snoke thing, since Snoke was just killed without any explanation of where it came from in The Last Jedi. But the retcon of it was totally unsatisfying. Just that he came out of a vat full of Snoke clones, that Palpatine was raising for whatever he was trying to do. Why did he have to have a Snoke to do it? I don't.
Right.
Snoke was cool, and he offered a potential great backstory for a villain that never came to pass. So this is another missed opportunity, I think, for the sequel trilogy. I turn it over to Carillion now.
All right. Okay. I agree and disagree with you both to a certain extent. I agree that if Palpatine is the way they were going to go, which obviously they weren't until the third film rolled around, they should have introduced it sooner. Maybe by the end of the first, by the end of The Force Awakens, maybe introduce it then. That would have been almost like a good cliffhanger, I think. Better than the last shot of Luke, on the island, which was still great. But maybe have it end with this weird call that the galaxy hears of Palpatine still being alive, or it's somehow, some way still existing. That would have been good, and then that would have set the tension for the next two films. As it is, obviously, we're left sort of with all these questions like you guys just had, like what, why, and why Snoke, and why was he here, and we did, they're just making up stuff to retcon things, and I was never a big Snoke fan, to be perfectly honest with you, so I really don't care that they killed him off. I don't know, I was never into that character.
It was because they didn't deliver on his potential at all. Yeah, and he was really more like a caring grandfather type figure in The Force Awakens, a fascist evil one, but he seemed more like he was concerned about his minions and stuff. In Last Jedi, they made him into the just typical paper mache villain, but I think it would have been more interesting to show him as a person, or whatever he was, that actually had emotions and everything, and wasn't just motivated purely by evil. And he actually thought that he could do something for people, or I don't know, that he knew the way better than other people or something. I don't know. Some kind of motivation other than just what the Emperor always has. As much as I love him.
To get to the Emperor a little bit more, as far as the fact that he is in this film, I just loved it. I have to admit, I love seeing the Emperor again because I just love his character. And the way that he was filmed in this was amazing. He has never looked more evil than he has looked in this
That's
film.
True.
I don't know if it's just the white eyes and just the way they shot it with kind of that strobe effect where it looked like his face is almost dancing around inside the hood. Just looked creepy. I mean, there were
one time when he smiled, he was human there for a second.
Yeah.
It's very, very fast. I've seen since I saw it 4 times, I noticed it.
If I was a kid, I would be freaked out by this right now, like by some of the imagery in that. So I just love the character of Palpatine. I am glad they brought him back. But again, I just don't think they did the character justice the way they did it. Ultimately, is what it boiled down to. They should have thought this out better if they were going to bring him back and done it over the course of at least 2 films, if not all 3. Because I like the payoff, the fact that he was there, but it didn't pay off ultimately as if it had been spread out over 3 films. That would have been so much better payoff.
And if I love the Emperor too. Don't get me wrong. He's become one of my favorite Star Wars characters, and he is my favorite character from the prequel trilogy by far. The problem is he spun his wheels in this. He showed us nothing new. I would have loved for old Palpatine to make a resurgence to where we see more of his humanity again, even though he's this desiccated monster. That's what's interesting about a monster, not the fact that they're a monster. It's what's left that we can relate to in the monster. He didn't show us any of that.
That's a good point, Vito, which really they could have taken advantage of.
Oh, he's Rey's grandfather.
Where he was a father.
Right.
Yeah, he's a father.
And Kylo Ren is the grandson of his best friend. I mean, if the Emperor ever had a friend, it was the guy who threw him down the shaft, He didn't have any friends, but if he ever had one, it was that guy. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess, but about the Emperor, I did like the way they shot him and stuff to a point. but it was overkill by the end for me. And in the end, he was a dumb Bond villain who was killed by his own stupidity, which is, I just can't believe it's too much to ask for a worthy villain and a worthy hero anymore. Like, they just can't seem to come up with them to give to us in media. I don't want to root for dumb people, whether it's a dumb emperor or whether it's a dumb hero. The emperor he just lost his mind at the end and became incredibly senile and stupid. And I still don't know what he wanted, because he was all over the place. Kill me, don't kill me. Oh, you killed me. Yeah, hello, you were asking for us to kill you for the last, the whole movie. And then it's like, he wanted Rey dead, he didn't want Rey dead. Who knows what this guy wants? He just loves blowing up planets. I know he loves fireworks. That's all I know really about it. He blows up planets real good. And he likes to foresee everything, and he foresees nothing at the end. And I don't know. I understand.
Can I jump in a little more thing about him?
Sure.
I guess this relates to what you're saying. That there's no clear motivation. He's just jumping back and forth between different motivations and different orders to people. And we don't know what he's trying to achieve or how exactly he thinks he's going to go about it. But aside from that, the other problem I had with him at the end there is that his role was too much of a direct retread of Return of the Jedi. The end of Return of the Jedi. I felt like I was just watching the throne room again in Return of the Jedi, only on acid. Again, it was like my turn on Return of the Jedi. He's just taking acid. And I just wanted the Emperor to do something new, a little bit different. At least in the prequel trilogy, we got to some different things from him. We got some complexity from him. He was the best character in the prequel trilogy. But in this, he was just a cackling maniac again on steroids. So while he was shot beautifully, I agree, y'all, that it was acted beautifully by Ian McDermott. They didn't.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Has anyone here not taken acid? Raise your hand. Okay. I just think it's ironic that you keep referring to an acid trip. Okay, it's just your imagination running wild.
At the Cantina Club.